Hey everyone, this is Mike Leonardi, and you are listening to the Warrior 2.0 podcast. Um, this has been fun so far. I'm in the beginning stages of it. We're early on in single-digit episodes, and one of the things that I love about it is that it probably sucks right now. I'm going to be bringing on guests. We are going to continue to flesh out this podcast to really dial in what the message is about. And I talk about that in the earlier episodes. But one of the things I love about growth is you got to suck and fail first before you get better. And so I'm okay with the fact that these podcasts might not be that great right now. Maybe there's one nugget here and there, but nonetheless, this is how you get better. So today's episode is titled "You Are the Villain of Your Story," and it comes off in playing in that whole mindset of when we talk about we are the heroes of our own story, right? Because we live our lives, and our lives are lived through our own eyes and our brain, right? And so we are at the center of that story. We are the protagonist of the story. And if any of you have ever read any of Joseph Campbell's stuff, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, whatever it is, there's a format that you see obviously in books, in movies, in terms of the hero's journey, that path, right? And growth, and they have the mentor. They go through this challenging time, and at the end they defeat the antagonist, and they come out a changed person, right? That's kind of like the general structure. And there's, I think it's a very common structure, and it's obviously very popular because it emulates, what life really is in some ways, right? And we can always kind of tie into it. There's a lot of patterns and analogies in all of this, but you always hear people say, "Hey, you're the hero of the story," right? And it's true. You are the hero of your story. But you're also the villain of the story. You're the bad guy. And I think it's an important thing to recognize, because once you recognize that, I think a lot of things start to change. One of the things that I have found in coaching a lot of people, and just obviously being around a lot of conversations in people, is, I don't know if I say most or some or a lot of people, but I often find people blame others. They blame their circumstances. That's probably the most common one. They blame circumstances. I don't have enough time. This or that. I've got this. I've got that. Here's why I can't do this. They blame others, especially if, it's a very easy thing to do, to blame others when something goes wrong. It's very easy to blame circumstances when something goes wrong. Most people don't have the wherewithal, well, some do, but most don't, to look at themselves in the mirror and take the blame. What's most important, though, in all of that, where I think people fall short, because I think a lot of people do, they are hard on themselves too as well, right? But that's like kind of the sequence. They blame circumstances, they blame others, and then they blame themselves, right? And where I think most people fall short is being okay with that. People, when they get to that point where they're done blaming others, done blaming their circumstances, and they fixate on themselves and just, get really hard on themselves, they stop at being okay with that. And that, to me, is a very critical part that I think takes a little bit more discussion. But truthfully, when people blame themselves and then they get really hard on themselves, I think it's actually a very egotistical thing. Because what they're saying is that they think they're somewhere here. And if you're just listening to this from an audio, they think they're actually better than they really are. They have this expectation of themselves that they should have done that better. They should have done this better. And that's an ego thing at the end of the day. Whereas I think the healthy thing to do is saying, okay, I'm not good at this, and you can blame yourself for that and be okay with it to say, I'm just not there yet. It's a growth mindset. It's saying, look, I suck at this, not to get hard on myself about it, not to attach too much emotion to it, and just say, okay, now I know what I need to do in order to get better. We've pushed circumstances out of the way. We've pushed other people out of the way. You've already made a ton of progress. Because you are ultimately the villain that you have to slay in your story. All the things that come with that, right? And so that's the topic of the conversation today. This is what we're talking about, is recognizing that you are the villain in the story and not getting emotionally vested in that statement. Recognizing and being as objective as you can to say, all right, and whatever it is you're trying to overcome, and there's a lot of things, right? In the vein of Warrior 2.0 and what we focus on, a lot of it is just self-development, is becoming the best version of ourselves so that we can live a healthy, balanced life, so that we can raise, kind, resilient, resourceful, happy children, and that we can thrive in today's digital age. And I say all that because there's so many challenges, there's so many things that come across our plate that give opportunities for us to either blame our circumstances, other people, or ourselves. So I think if you're already at the point where you are blaming yourself, you've already won, in my opinion, because there is a large population of people out there in this world that continue to blame others and continue to blame their circumstances for their lack of success. And it does bother me a little bit, and it shouldn't, but it does, because it's something that is not going to get them anywhere at the end of the day. There's no growth in blaming other people and blaming circumstances. Here's why. Because the second you start to point a finger, and the second you start to try to move that responsibility and accountability to your failures to something outside of you, i.e. your circumstances or other people or whatever that is the minute you take away all power to yourself. It's the minute you're telling yourself that you are a victim, that you can't change things, that you don't have control over your life and how you respond to things. Because all you're fixated on is the external and not the internal. And there's going to be no fucking growth there whatsoever. And quite frankly, this is just me going off on a little bit of an emotional tangent. If you're an adult and you're still thinking that way, then you fucked up in many, many ways along the way. There's been some serious failures in your life, whether you were not around the right people, and that's not necessarily your fault, maybe growing up. Maybe you didn't, and this part I can empathize with. Maybe you did have a traumatic childhood. Maybe you had some of these other things going on. Maybe you didn't have good role models or coaches or things of that nature. And for that, I'm sorry. Like, legitimately, there are people there that I know that grew up with, negative childhoods and traumatic experiences and things of that nature. I'm not referring to those people right now, just to make it clear. But what I am referring to is that it is your responsibility to work on yourself. Whether you call it the inner work, mental health, whatever. This is why I've been speaking about this stuff for years, about mental health. Whatever you want to call it, mental fitness, performance, mindset, whatever word you want. It's everything that goes on in your brain and how you handle the stimuli that come into you through sight, sound, physical touch, whatever that is, right? Whatever the world is outside of your brain, how you process that, how you react to that, and how you output, how you behave, therefore, how you respond to that. Whatever you want to call that, it is the most important thing that you can work on as a human being, because it affects everything in your life. It affects how you live your life. And so that is very complex. There's a lot of things that break down. It's a lot of what we talk about in the Warrior 2.0 program, the Science of Happiness course, all that stuff. But for the sake of today's episode, one of the first things we have to do is recognize that you are the villain of your story. There is no other bad guy. It's not the Democrats. It's not the Republicans. It's not the Chinese or the Russians or, transgender people or the Jews or African Americans or Christians or people that want to own a gun in their homes. Like, those are not the bad people. That's a whole nother conversation in terms of where we are as a society in terms of tribalism, sectarianism, all those things, right? Those are very troubling things. And again, in reference to what we talk about here, how the digital age is perpetuating a lot of those pitfalls in our thinking. Because we consume content, and a lot of this stuff paints and tries to create a narrative that there are these evil people out there. Now, granted, there are evil people out there, but the percentage is so small that it's really not affecting you to the degree that the internet or social media wants to lead you to believe. The reality is you're the fucking bad guy. You are the villain in your story that you have to fight over and over and over again. Some days you win, some days you triumph, some days you get your ass fucking kicked. And it's up to you to stand back up, get back on the path, and keep fighting. So once that, in my opinion, is you recognize that the battle is within. You got to conquer this stuff first before you really start to look at to the outside. Interestingly enough, his personal life aside, one of Michael Jackson's songs, A Man in the Mirror, if you want to change the world, take a look at the mirror and change yourself, right? Basically, it's saying is if you want your world to change, or the world as you perceive it, whatever that is, you got to start with yourself, because a better me is going to create a better us at the end of the day. And it starts with identifying and recognizing that you are not only the hero of your story, but you are also the villain of your story. So anyway, I hope that provides a little bit of just a reminder for some of you that are like, no shit, I know this, Mike, what are you talking about? But like, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. So I'm not here necessarily teaching people anything. I'm sharing bits of information that I found to be very valuable, not only for my own personal life, but those around that I've coached and worked with for a very, very long time. So hopefully it brings some value to you. If not, I'm not offended. No worries. I still love everyone out there. Take care, be well, and see you soon. Thanks.